I wanted to talk to you about beauty as well, and the way we can connect it to awesomeness, which is a word that's kind of, you buy a cup of coffee off someone and you say thanks and they say awesome. It's not quite the same as that awesome sense that you can have sometimes, which again is shown to make people more fulfilled in their lives.
Yes.
Regularly experiencing genuine awe. And I'd connect that to beauty as well, the appreciation of beauty in whatever form it takes, and how that's somehow a reflection of something maybe transcendental.
Yes, I would, certainly distinguish awe from beauty. Some things that are awe-inspiring are beautiful, and some things that are beautiful are awe-inspiring, but they aren't necessarily the same. No. But yes, it strikes me as odd that it's not a term we value so much these days. Our term of approval for any work of art is that it is disturbing or powerful, particularly powerful or strong. Or shocking. But not, it sounds too unassertive for something to be beautiful. And yet to create something beautiful requires a certain degree of not sort of striving to be powerful in some way over your material, but to evoke something that is in the material. It's a reverberative process. And when we appreciate a work of art and find it beautiful, it is speaking to us, and we are helping to make it what it is in our realization of it, in our consciousness. I think beauty also brings to mind the idea that we've touched on a couple of times, which is the coming together of opposites, which again is a core theme of Heraclitus's. That everything is composed of opposites. And one of the ways in which one can characterize beauty is that it is the unity of sameness and difference that produces a harmony. That's a rather dense saying, but one thing I'm arguing in the book is that there are drives in the cosmos, in simply the creative nature of it, but also in us, to strive for seeing the sameness of things and seeing their difference, but seeing them both together, not separately. And that something that is beautiful is enough differentiated within itself. It's not all simple one, but those differentiated parts also have a harmony, and it's the appreciation of the harmony of the whole. I think you can apply this to beauty in almost any culture. That, first of all, there are surprising, consiliences between what is found beautiful in different cultures. There's a sort of fashionable idea that beauty was just what everyone happens to like at the time, and society can change it. Around the margins, that's true, and perhaps when it comes to what you find desirable in the opposite sex, that may be the case.
Personal predilections.
Yes, but actually but even there, I would say no. Generally speaking, there is agreement. There's been a lot of studies on this, so that a man or a woman who is considered beautiful or good-looking or handsome in their own culture is usually felt to be so in other cultures. But also, the works of art tend to be cross-culturally appreciated. I was not brought up with the Japanese aesthetic, but, whenever I see exquisitely beautiful works of art that are Japanese, I really don't need to be persuaded that they're beautiful. And the sheer popularity of Western art and Western, drama like Shakespeare amongst Oriental peoples, shows that this is a universal fact. So it isn't all just generated by a sort of taste that can come and go. There are fundamentals to beauty. Around now, we live in a great age of debunking. If you debunk something, you immediately seem one up on everyone else.
It's a status move.
It's a status move. Poor suckers, they still believe this, but I know better. So it's essentially a slightly aggressive move. And nowadays, I feel that debunking needs to be debunked a bit as well. And in the book I've just finished writing, that's something I undertake. But I am also addressing, what came to mind here was the golden ratio or the golden section, which is the idea of a relationship, which if I had a diagram I could illustrate, but which has certain beautiful mathematical properties. And maths has beauty. If it's right, it has deep beauty, as many mathematicians have explained. Yeah. But in fact, this is appreciated as especially beautiful intuitively in most cultures. So, as I say, there are commonalities. And, you can't really get everything reduced to, for example, there are people who would like to reduce the beauty in human beings to reproductive fertility or viability.
Yeah. So markers, health markers,
markers of health,
good genes.
Yes.
So that's a viable.
Yes.
Sort of mechanism for passing on good genes, and that's what physical beauty becomes.
That's right. But a moment's reflection will show you that, in fact, the sort of signs of maximum fertility don't necessarily produce beauty.
No.
And also that people who are beautiful are not necessarily sexually attractive, and people who are sexually attractive are often not in any way beautiful. So I don't think this argument begins to work, and it certainly doesn't explain why a Bach unaccompanied unaccompanied violin fugue or cello fugue would be a beautiful thing. It doesn't explain why...
No, it's not passing on good genes.
It's not passing on good genes. It doesn't explain why the equation e to the I pi equals -1, my favourite mathematical equation, is beautiful, bringing together these numbers that just harmonise in a certain way. And when you think about landscape, it's certainly not fertile landscape that gives you opportunities for growth that we particularly think of as beautiful. It's often desert places, wild places, mountains, and landscapes which are actually kind of harsh. Mm. There's a very nice book by, what's his name, Belden Lane, I think, called The Solace of Fierce Landscapes. And you might think, well, this is a very modern way of thinking, and it is true that in the 18th century, when people crossed the Alps, they were often blindfolded so that they wouldn't go crazy at the size of the mountains and the chasms. But and so it's often said that this is a modern taste. But in fact, the appreciation of the desert and the appreciation of wild forests and places that are not fertile, I can find you examples from East and West going back 2,000 years, where they particularly struck. One early church fathers, waxed quite eloquent on the beauty of the desert, and that wasn't a modern
No, so the purely deterministic point of view might be that you come up in the old days, you come across a piece of land, you think this is good farming land, therefore it's beautiful.
Yeah.
In the same way that this is a viable genetic vessel, this person, therefore they're beautiful. And that's not that at all.
Well, the most fertile land for growing vegetables in this country, in the United Kingdom, is in Lincolnshire. And a very large number of vegetables are grown there, but nothing is more dispiriting to the soul than the open expanse of a sea of cabbages in Lincolnshire.
And apologies to any viewers in Lincolnshire.
Well, Lincolnshire has its beauty, but all I'm really saying is I don't think it works as a... No.
And of course, beauty is in the eye of the beholder to some degree, but there are...
It's to some degree is the important phrase there. We always collapse things into one pole or the other, rather than sit with the uneasy tension that it's both. So I'm just saying that because it's so easy to think, well, is it this or is it that? And the answer may often be, and it's not a fudge, it's an insight into something wise, that it actually requires both elements. Most things do. One of Heraclitus's most dense utterances essentially gives this exact description of how everything real is a coming together of opposites. One rather easy example, and one that Heraclitus often uses, is the metaphor of the lyre. Not a person who tells lyres, but the musical instrument, or of a bow, in which the power of the lyre to make musical notes and the power of the bow to send an arrow comes from the fact that the ends of the string are pulled maximally in opposite directions. Now, from a logical point of view, you might say there's a lot of wasted energy in having two things pulling in opposite directions. Why not let them just collapse into one? If you did, there is no music, there is no power of the arrow, no flight of the arrow. So, I mean, that's an example, but I think that what I would say is that most things have a downside. Well, everything actually, let me be clear, has a downside as well as an upside. It's Alan Watts's, for every mountain there must be a valley.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't have one without the other.